what's up? Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good? Red Panda Anthem. It's your boy.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, let's. Jay's got a plan. What's going on?
Hey guys.
Hey Janet, how are you?
What's going on?
Good. How are you guys? Hi Josh.
What's up?
Good.
Episode tonight. Let's get to these questions.
Yes, let's get to it.
All right, CT Anderson, unmute yourself, please. We are coming to you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfectly.
How are you?
What's going on?
Oh my goodness, this is too freaking exciting. I've been following the
appreciate
podcast since July of 2019. I found out about it and I was like, what the hell? I hadn't heard about this. Like, I listened to all 30 episodes in like a month. And then I went to the in-person event in January 2020 at David Sham's spot in Atlanta.
Okay.
Forget that day. That's the day we found out we lost Kobe Bryant.
It was. January 26th, 2000.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace to the great Kobe Bryant. I had to break that news before Maxwell went on.
I showed it to you. You said, you sure? I'm like,
no, before
really?
Alex Good Energy was about, I'm like, he's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure.
It's one of these things I had to let the people know. I had to let 400 people know that Kobe Bryant passed away. That was a moment in history.
Yeah. And I was there with y'all. It was crazy. Anyway. And then my brother who lives in Atlanta, I stayed with him and he's like, why are you paying whatever small amount y'all was charging? So go listen to some guys you heard on a podcast. Fast forward to today, he's a member of Red Panda. But we
Hey, that's how it works.
Anyway, here's my question. How do y'all consider, and this is for everybody, including Josh, shout out to Josh, how do y'all consider the impacts of climate change when analyzing a company? I mean, it's happening left and right. The OCC just said that they're going to regulate banks on climate risk management. The SEC is coming out later this year with their own, kind of climate risk management guidelines. How are y'all putting that in y'all analysis?
Josh.
That's a great question. For clients, we build what are called direct indexes, meaning rather than just give people the SPY to represent the market, we will buy them all of those stocks individually. And then for clients who are concerned with things like ESG, environmental, social governance, meaning they really care about the businesses that are polluting the environment. They don't want to put their dollars into it. Or the businesses who aren't doing a good job with governance, meaning it's a board of directors that doesn't really represent their shareholder base, or the social aspect, meaning they're not promoting women and they're not upholding their corporate responsibility to make society better, right? So there are people that don't want those types of stocks in their portfolio, and we algorithmically can screen those stocks out so that when we do a buy of a market, a U.S. market portfolio, rather than buying an ETF that owns all 500 S&P stocks, maybe we end up owning 430 stocks. And the 70 that we choose not to own, they scored low quantitatively on those measures. Not every client cares about that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So because we're doing this as a direct index, we can custom tailor that stock portfolio for each household. And we've got clients who have religious objections to certain sectors of the market. They don't want to own alcohol. They don't want to own casinos. We've got clients who don't want to own publicly traded prison companies or gun manufacturers like this. Look, people work their asses off for their money. They have the right to tell us what they don't want to invest in. And I think that's part of our fiduciary responsibility. So that's one way in which we will build portfolios that screen that stuff out. And then the next level of that, which I have to confess, we're not at the forefront of this, but I have good friends who are, is impact investing. So then it's like, yo, don't just tell me what you're excluding. Tell me what you're actually doing with your dollars, like to bring about the kind of society that you want to have. So I'm not the right person for that. We really haven't done much there. If you're interested in learning more about a real firm like mine that's doing that, my friend Rachel Robichodi in San Francisco, she's got a firm with, I think, 20 employees. Every employee is LGBTQ, and they are not just screening out gun manufacturers. They are putting dollars into projects that are not only profitable and good equity investments, but really have the ability to bring about the type of change that she's very interested in pursuing. So there's a whole spectrum of ways to take your beliefs and incorporate them into your allocation. And everybody's got to decide how far along that spectrum they want to go. But there are a lot of people doing a lot of interesting things on that front, and I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of them. And we're getting them all together this coming September. I'm throwing a festival in Huntington Beach, California called Future Proof. And a lot of the content is going to be about impact investing. So stay tuned for more on that.
Josh, how do we spell Rachel's last name?
Good question. Robascioti, Robasciotti.
Yeah.
Correct.
She is an absolute killer, like dedicated, on message, and not just talking about ESG like everybody talks about it. She's living it, and her firm is about it. So she'd be a great guest on your show, by the way. I think you guys would love talking to her.
Yeah, dope. But you could connect the dots. That'll be dope.
We'll do that. I will do that.
All right, Janet, another question.
All right, Vincent, we are coming to you. Unmute yourself.
All right. Thank you, Janet. Good evening, gentlemen. Ian.
How are you?
Have a question for you, Rashad and Troy, as well as Josh. I initially started listening to you guys a couple of years back, and then I spoke to Rashad last month in his last financial planning, and he spoke to my 16-year-old who was starting some investing. My 16-year-old had a question. Is it okay if I have him?
Absolutely. This is amazing.
All right. Thank you.
So my dad opened me up on a custodial account with Charles Schwab, and I've been buying fractions of stocks you guys recommended me to buy. Should I continue buying those stocks on their average high if the prices haven't dropped to the entry point, even if I'm executing?
I'll take it real quick, then I'll let Rashada and Josh chime in. With you being, if I can go back to being 16 years old when I was listening to Nas and Jay-Z and Busta Rhymes, right? I wish someone would have told me with quality top 10% stocks, and Josh, you can chime in, any company or index at that time, if you would have held it for a 10-year period, man, I would have been up a lot of money. So I don't want you to buy at an all-time high or maybe even at the top 2% of the market. But with you being so young and being 16, if it's a quality company, it almost does not matter. So hold for the long term. I do have to ask you a question, though. Do you have Cash App?
Yes, I have Cash App.
Can you give it to me, please? Thank you for investing at such a young age. Everybody else clapping up for him.
Yeah.
But because I think it's amazing.
And Vincent, we got to give it up to his dad as well. I was there on that call while he was sitting with Shadi on that call, and he spoke to his son. I'm like, this is impressive. At 16, I didn't know what investing was. I didn't know what stocks were. I just knew I was buying companies and listening to rap music. So right, like we would listen to rap music and watching Video Music Box and Rap City, man. So shout out to you for being here right now. You could have been doing a bunch of things right now. But the fact that you're here says a lot about you and your character, and kudos to your dad as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
send me your Cash App, King.
And I agree. I mean, I think for dollar cost averaging, the safest bet is always probably ETFs or index funds. I mean, there's a couple of stocks like Apple, Microsoft, where probably can't go wrong with that. But if you a true dollar cost average, you got to put money in consistently. That's like the 401k. Like every time you get paid, they take money out. You can't really say, okay, the market's too high, so I'm not going to put money in my 401k. Nobody really ever does that. It's just, the first of every month, I'm putting money in, it's going to the market, whatever. Not even thinking about it. It's a long-term play. Like I said, especially if you have ETFs or index fund, it's diversified over a wide variety of different stocks. So, it's not the end of the world if there's fluctuations in it. So that would be my take on it.
That's really, and in 10 years, you'll be 26. So imagine that.
Hey, on that, gentleman, do I need to give that information to Janet as far as his Cash App? And my second one is also, Rashad, I'm still dealing with Coinbase on that hack. So I'll keep you posted, man. They sent an email and said, hey, please give us another 20 days. I don't know if that's fluff or not, but I'm praying and hoping that
it'll be done at 40. If they told you 20, it'll be 40.
Okay.
As long as it's not an influx in the crypto space.
Coinbase got that 5-factor authentication at this point. They're like, we need to text you, and then we need to email you, and then we need you to come to our headquarters and take a blood test.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you, gentlemen.
It's hectic.
Yeah,
put your Cash App. Put the Cash App in chat.
Yeah, put in the chat so we can run up for your son.
All right. Thank you.
Josh BlackBerry recently died. How long do you think before Apple is dead? Let's do a hot take.
BlackBerry. Well,
that was my baby. I love BlackBerry back in the day.
Shout out to the trios of the world.
It's fun. It's funny. The iPhone came out in 07.
07.
And in that time, if you did anything in business, you had a BlackBerry. And not only did you have a BlackBerry, it never left your hand.
Oh my God.
And if somebody would have said in 07, listen, 15 years from now, they're gonna close BlackBerry down, the software, the devices, everything, and Apple's gonna be worth $3 trillion on that day that news comes out. It would have been impossible to believe.
You're a fucking idiot.
I mean, who could possibly believe that?
Yeah.
And Apple was no big deal at that time. Steve Jobs had just come back. They were making those candy-colored.
Can you tell them that Apple was not the easy pick that it is now back in 07, 08, 09, 2010?
The candy-colored iPods and iPod minis.
The iPod minis. That's right.
Yeah.
So Apple became a layup, I think, in like 13, 14.
Yeah.
Until then, it was like, yo, this company's making consumer electronics. That's not... Historically, companies that made like Nintendo Game Boy was not where it was at. Like Nokia, companies that made consumer electronics were never great investments. So Apple really broke the mold because they tied the services to the devices in a way that nobody else had ever been able to do. But it wasn't an obvious stock, I don't think, for most people until like 13, 14.
After Cook got in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get like one more question if we can before we wrap.
They said Josh put up a triple-double.
Josh,
absolutely.
Yeah. And that is JP Morgan. That's JP Morgan, right?
That's Christopher Wallace and J. Pierpont Morgan.
Yeah,
JP,
in the background.
JP Morgan,
the financier.
Biggie Smalls.
The only Christopher we acknowledge.
Yo, like seriously, read about J. Pierpont Morgan because he
saved America.
He invented all of this shit. Like everything that's in the modern markets that we take it for granted, like it's from nature, like it just happened. None of this happened. All of this came about in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And a lot of this was like JP Morgan's will being imposed on other people with money. Like he like kind of invented modern capitalism.
He's the hedge fund market maker, Fed essentially. Like,
Yeah, so there's a great story in 1907. There's a panic of 1907, real panic, not like this bullshit. Like people's whole life savings being wiped out before the market even opens. They can't even sell if they wanted to, right? So he did this thing. So there's a bank going out of business. He like kicks the door down. He basically says, I'm in charge now. And he tells the tellers that the panic on Wall Street's gonna run its course. It's like a virus, right? Like everyone's gonna freak out. It's gonna run its course. He said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to count what he's got a line out the door, people trying to get their cash out. And he said, here's the strategy. I want you to count very slowly. So people go into the window and they're like, give me back my $500. No problem. 1, 2, and they did that until the market closed that day. And then overnight, he gets all the CEOs of every major bank at his library on 36th and Madison or 37th Madison. He puts them all in the room. He locks the door. He says, nobody's leaving until we all decide on a rescue plan. And they did it. The next day, the market opens, big announcements. All these banks are throwing cash at stocks. They save the day. So actually counting the money slowly to slow down the withdrawals, that's what we had to do before there was a Federal Reserve. Yeah, there was no Fed. He was the Fed. He was the guy. Like he was the firewall. So read about that dude. You'll learn amazing shit.
This that Red Panda Anthem. Ian, what's up? This that Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good? Red Panda Anthem. Your boy going up.